Hey, viewers and viewers, my name is General Red Strategist. Welcome back to So You're Being Hunted, episode 580 now. So, cleared out Centre Island last time, we'll just be moving on to another island as usual. It seems I'm just doing sort of another default playthrough of the game whilst I talk about various sort of topics that are on my mind and all that. And I had a topic on my mind and all that, so why not talk about it in this one, ladies and gentlemen? So I hope you guys are all doing well. It's a Friday afternoon, actually, when I record this. And, thing is, you know, obviously my work's done for the day, so I thought have a big recording session and all that. I've actually been, recording a fair few things so far. Did a bit of Call of Duty World War II, a bit of Crash Bandicoot, a bit of Danganronpa S. I thought, you know what, might just round it off with a So You're Being Hunted episode, something like that. Well, I say round it off. Yeah, round it off, because I don't know if there's anything else I'm going to be recording after I've done this. There's a lot of fucking dogs around. Just seeing them all bobbing around all over the place between me and the friggin' jetty that I want to get to. Where are they fucking going? What are they doing? Alright, let me just go over this way, give them a wide berth. Now, in the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, actually, the topic of conversation I actually have in mind for today's episode is based on, it's based on sort of reading material, quote, unquote. So, you know, last episode I was talking about how I'd actually started looking at some of, like, the old Sonic Archie comics and some, like, Danganronpa related light novel stuff here on YouTube. Well, on the subject of more conventional reading material, i.e. books, I actually finished an interesting book that I was reading recently, which, you know what, let's talk a bit of literature and stuff like that. I'll just jump cut here as I go to the next island. So the book that I actually finished recently is basically a book that's about Greek and Roman mythology. It's non-fiction. But, Greek and Roman mythology, of course, we've all probably encountered at various points in our lives. We all probably know some of the basics about it in terms of some of the key heroes and deities and monsters and just general stories, things like that. But it was interesting actually to read what was essentially a summary of some of the kind of key parts of Greco-Roman mythology. Obviously it sort of treats them together because, as you can imagine, you know, what with the Romans having, with a lot of Roman myths obviously being heavily inspired by Greek stuff, and in some cases just outright a copy of what the Greeks said and wrote and things like that, then naturally this book sort of treats them together because obviously they're related. They share a lot of historical commonalities, and Roman mythology is very much an evolution of Greek mythology and things like that. So hence why, it treats them together. But it was, very, very interesting. If there's one thing I kind of really learned, or something that was really reinforced in my head reading this book, it is that some of the stories of things that Greek gods and heroes got up to, some of it is really fucked up. Some of the characters in Greek myth are they are assholes. They really are. So it's like for example, Zeus. Let's take Zeus as an example. The father of the Olympian gods, or rather, the head of the Olympian gods and all that. Let's just remind ourselves of just the amount of friggin' rape and just outright sexual assault that he basically commits, where he basically, sleeps with women without their knowledge. And then what makes it even more fucked up is how quite often, instead of him facing consequences for that, it's usually his female victims who end up being punished for it. So, Zeus, absolute womanizer. But that's the thing, I suppose, actually, about a lot of, mythologies in Greco-Roman, tradition. The gods, they're not necessarily righteous beings, Because the thing is, in the monotheistic religions of today, like Christianity, Islam, Judaism, people sort of understand there to just be one God, and that God is righteous and supreme and is good. But of course, in a lot of ancient mythologies, there were good gods, but there were also bad gods. And the gods, sometimes their morality was never always clear, and things that they sometimes did were, clearly not, were not necessarily the right thing, to put it that way. There were plenty of times where often they would act in nefarious and arrogant and selfish and quite flawed ways. I suppose that's the whole point, gods are not gods are just sort of entities that are far superior to humans, and which therefore, can be a bit incomprehensible, and they have their own interests and things like that they do. So, interesting reading, of course, about all the freaking Zeus's bloody sexual conquest, whether consensual or otherwise. It was quite something, but yeah, it was interesting though, don't get me wrong, it was very, very interesting. But yes, but it's also interesting as well how a lot of the figures in ancient Greek and Roman mythology, often their stories kind of intertwine with one another. So, like, for example, the story of Heracles and the stories of Jason and the Argonauts, or the stories of Heracles and Theseus, for example, some of the heroes, their stories often intertwine with one another. And just like the gods, sometimes the stuff that they get up to is just as weird and just makes you sit there and think, wait, you're supposed to be the hero in this tale? Really? Like Heracles, for example. Again, like Zeus, his sexual conquest when women sort of rejected him, or things like that, he would just sometimes just fucking assault them. It's just like, Jesus Christ, dude, not necessary at all. But the thing is, from my own knowledge, I mean, it's not just Greco-Roman mythology that has those kind of aspects of morality which we today would look at and sort of think, Jesus, what the fuck. I mean, it reminds me, for example, of stories from Sinbad the Sailor, for instance, who obviously is ancient Mesopotamian. I mean, similarly, like, there's a story of him, for example, I think, journeying into an underworld, where he just comes across like an innocent woman and basically just murders her, because why the fuck not, essentially. So, yeah, ancient stories. Of course, different times, different morality, different moral codes, which you have to factor in, but that doesn't mean that we can't judge them from a, historian's perspective and all that. That's something I've talked about in So You're Being Hunted before, like presentism in history, things like that. Why it is both sort of understandable, but at the same time there are limits to it, at least in my eyes. But yeah, it's still an interesting topic if you're interested in that kind of thing. I can't remember what episode number that was, but yeah, it was really interesting. Very interesting indeed. Oh, careful. But yeah, getting back to the subject of Greco-Roman mythology and just how fucked up it is, it's often just the role that women played in some of these myths that just makes you think, God, yeah, it was a very chauvinistic time, ancient Greece and all that. It's funny because often we sort of look at ancient Greece and ancient Rome and ancient civilizations in general, and we think to ourselves sometimes we make the mistake of thinking they were very liberal in certain respects, but problem is, can you really say that in all instances? And you have to be, again, a bit careful that you're not reading too much of a modern slant into certain things. Because, like, for example, we hear tales of, for example, like Zeus and Ganymede, so taking on kind of like a younger male lover and stuff like that, and we think, this suggests that the ancient Greeks had a more liberal attitude to, say, homosexuality than, sometimes we do today. But sometimes you have to be a bit careful about reading too much into that, because there's that question of, did the Greeks sort of understand homosexuality at that time in the same way that we do today? So as a result, you have to sort of take that nuance into account. But, it's things like this that you just got to be a bit wary of. But still, like I say, a lot of these ancient Greek myths around Zeus and certain heroes can just be so freaking messed up in certain regards. Oh man, it is very, very sad. But yes, but in terms of literature, now that I've finished that book on Greco-Roman mythology, I've now started one about Chinese mythology. Because a few weeks ago, I basically went into the town centre and I went to Waterstones and I was just looking around at books I'd potentially buy, and I bought 3 of them. A Greco-Roman myth one, Chinese mythology, and one that's on Japanese mythology. But there were other ones as well, which I may well buy at some point. So I think there was one on Egyptian, and there was one I think on Celtic, which certainly would be an interesting one, because Celtic mythology is a subject that I think I'd know barely anything about. So that would be interesting to maybe have a read on. Egyptian mythology is another one that I'm a bit sort of, I don't know, my knowledge is a bit, how should I say, patchy on. I know of various gods like Anubis and Osiris and Set and Isis, etc., etc. But there's lots of other tales and gods from Egyptian myth that I just don't really know too much about. But yes, but as messed up as the stories are, it's interesting to learn about them, essentially. which is always good. Always good, ladies and gents. Alright, let's see. Should I be maybe throwing a bottle to try and distract these assholes over here? Get close enough. Shit. Get close enough with these hay bales between myself and them. Alright, I'm pretty low visibility here. Oh. Don't you look around that way, please. Alright, if I go around here. Oh. Shit. Where are you going, buddy? I'm going to get closer and closer like this. Send them off over there. Right, they're going off over there. We should be able to get this thing if we close up. Got it. Boom. Snuck like a pro. That's how you do it, ladies and gentlemen. We should be close to the jetty to get back to the centre island. Go, 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 go. Oh, I'm too far away. You can't see me. Right, let me have a celebratory sip of tea whilst I'm at it. Yes, there's a lot of cultures around the world, ladies and gentlemen, with mythologies that I would love to read about. Egyptian, Celtic, possibly Norse. I wonder if actually there is a copy of a book on Norse mythology. Because the thing is, the books that I bought, I think they're like all from the same series, because they're all hardbacks, but they're all, like cover-wise, it looks like they're part of, like I say, a series of volumes. So I wonder if they've got like a Norse one as well, because that surely would be quite an interesting one to get my teeth into too. Also wondering about things like maybe Native American mythologies, maybe like Aztec, Incan, or maybe mythologies of like North American native tribes, things like that. That probably also would be quite an interesting thing to read up on. What about like African mythologies, which are often quite animist, things like that. Oh my god, someone's having a shootout. Well, let me have a look in some buildings while I'm at it, just to get some supplies. Oof, shotgun. Sure, we'll take it, why not? Take that, take that. Put that in slot 7. Oh, there's a map of the island in there, just realised to get that too. You guys shooting? What are you doing up there? Having a bit of fun? Yeah, they're quite a way off, aren't they? Well, while they're distracted, let's have a look around, get some more stout. I've got plenty of food, I don't really need any more, do I? You know what, maybe wait to see if they kill each other, and then we'll go looking for bodies. God, they're really going for it, aren't they? They are really having a shootout. There's a dead dude over here. Any ammo? Nope. Just going to discard that, so gets rid of the sparking. Oh, hello. Ah, no ammo, really. Discard, discard. Oh shit, you're all coming this way. That's not good. Get the wall between myself and them, and then back off. Okay. Well, nothing really there that we can pick up, but that's fine. Alright, let's go. Let's get the hell out of here. I think we've done enough on this island, haven't we? So I'm just playing one-handed a moment. Whilst I drink some more tea. Okay, good stuff, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know in the comments, though. If you're into mythology of ancient civilizations, what's your favourite? Is it Greek? Is it Roman? Is it Chinese? Norse? Egyptian? Ancient Mesopotamian? There's a whole set of mythologies, actually, that would be quite interesting. Like Sumerian and Babylonian and Akkadian and Assyrian, Hittite, stuff like that. Yes. I was actually interested in things like Korea. Like, is their mythology, I don't know, quite distinct, or is it very similar to like Chinese and Japanese? I'm not entirely sure. Alright, let's jump cut. Ah, yes. Okay. Alright, we'll deposit these pieces and then we can probably wrap this episode up, I do think. Which will be good. Okay. Alright, I'm just trying to think, for example, if I had a particular favourite ancient Greek or Roman story or anything like that. I mean, they're all pretty good in their own ways. I mean, like the tale of Jason and the Argonauts is always an interesting one with the amount of stuff they had to go through. Because that's like a big maritime adventure. The story of Odysseus is also quite interesting, because he, returning from the siege of Troy and all that. And the amount of things he encountered, like Circe and all the other stuff. Yeah, not going to go through it in detail here, because I'd have to reconsult my little book in case I've forgotten anything. But yeah, crazy. Like Odysseus's whole grand voyage lasted years. Getting back to Greece just from the siege of Troy. Just all sorts of bad things happening to him. Alright, here we are. Okay, switch that off. And let us deposit these device pieces. And then wrap up. Okay, so Facebook and Twitter links, as usual, are down in the description below. I nearly said the comments. It's not where they are. Along with a link to my propagandist channel for anyone interested. If you enjoyed, a like is of course always appreciated. But other than that, sign off now. Goodbye, everybody. Whatever you want to call them. Technically, they're supposed to be his fists, but that's how they refer to them. But technically, he's using his fist to fire a magic thingy bobber. Oi! Get out of here! Stop it! I want that bubble. It's mine. Okay. And before we go up there, where those yellow and blue ones are, on the right, there's a cave down here, which may have some interesting secrets in it. Let's go and have a look. So yeah, this is my favourite level of Rayman 2, this one, with all the underwater swimming. I'd probably also say that the underwater level in Rayman 3 is also one of my favourite Rayman levels. That's just random ones, I didn't even need... Whoa, that was a bit of lag then. Jesus. Didn't like that falling.